Mr. Craig Anderson. May I call you Mr. Anderson?
Yes, of course.
Mr. Anderson, my name is Rifat bin Reza, and I am your barrister for this case. I have been instructed by your solicitors, and my role here today is to hear your version of the events, and later on I'll be representing you in the trial. So the purpose of today's conference, as we are shortly due for the trial, is to advise you on the evidences we have and how you should plea for this case, which venue or which court this case may go to, and the likely sentence that you are facing. And this conference will be in two halves. On the first half, I will basically ask you a few questions, which may sound repetitive, but it's very important that I hear your version of the things so that I can represent you properly. And later on, based on what you are telling me, I will advise you on plea, venue, and likely sentence. Do you understand, Mr. Anderson?
Yeah.
Mr. Anderson, I would first like to ask you a few questions about the day of the incident.
Okay.
But before that, did you know Mr. Banks before the day of the incident?
No.
All right. Mr. Anderson, we have a sketch plan of the place where the incident took place, and this has been drawn by Mr. Banks. Firstly, can I just confirm whether you agree to the position that the car is shown in this exhibit?
Yeah.
All right. Can I just know, as I can see that in this map, your car, the Range Rover, is following the one direction,
Yeah.
and Mr. Banks' car is following the other direction, and
Yeah.
this is Mr. Banks standing there. Is that right, Mr. Anderson?
Well, that's sort of where yeah, I suppose it is more or less.
All right. Mr. Anderson, as you have said, and also Mr. Banks have said, that there was a sarcastic clap that Mr. Banks did. How did that make you feel?
Too happy?
Right. And do you remember who got out of the car first on that day? He did. How did you know that he got out of the car? Because you were facing the opposite direction.
See him get out of the car in my mirror.
All right. And when you got out of the car, where did you two exactly meet?
Yeah.
All right. And what was the conversation between you and Mr. Banks?
He was shouting at me and saying, you could see what I was doing. And I said to him, well, what's your problem? I gave you enough room, which I did. I gave him enough room. He had more than enough room to do a three-point turn, and he actually completed the three-point turn. So I don't know what he was complaining about. He was just kicking up and making a fuss about absolutely nothing.
All right. Mr. Anderson, we have heard from two witnesses, the complainant and his mother, that you have said at one point, what are you going to do about it? Have you said anything like that, Mr.
No,
Anderson?
that's not true. They're saying lies.
Mr. Anderson, also at your police interview, you said that they called you a little boy. Did they tell something like that, Mr. Anderson?
The bloke did, the woman didn't. Yeah, after his mother he was shouting at me and going on and on and on about not giving him enough room, and I was saying, look, I gave you enough room, what's your problem? And then his mother got in between us and sort of tried to get him to go back to the car. When he was doing that, he said to me, oh, go back to your car, little boy. And I said to him, oh, look, don't give it that. And then he turned to go, and I said, yeah, I thought so, meaning that he was a bit of a wimp. And then he turned back, barged past his mother, and he punched me. So I punched him back.
So can we rewind back a little bit? When you say he punched you,
Yeah.
that is right after this little boy conversation happened,
Yeah.
right? All right. So which way were you facing when he punched you?
I just turned to go back to my body, and I hadn't moved to go back to my car when he punched me.
So you had your back towards him.
On my side to him, really,
All right. So where did he exactly punch you?
on the face.
And how did you react to that?
I punched him.
Where did you punch him?
Sorry?
Where did you punch him
On
back?
his face.
How many times did you punch him?
Once.
Just once.
Mhm.
Are you sure, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I'm sure.
All right. And did you know that there was also a 3-year-old child present during this incident?
No, I didn't see the child.
So when you punched this person, where was his mother? The other lady that was present that day?
Next to him,
All right. And did you have anyone else with you?
my friend James.
And where was he at that moment?
I think he was standing outside my car near the passenger door at that stage, but I'm not absolutely sure.
All right. And you also say that the defendant, or the complainant in this case, Mr. Banks, also said that you put him in a headlock. Did you do anything like
No,
that?
that's not true. He's lying. I didn't put him in a headlock, and he hasn't even said it in a statement that I put him in a headlock. So the mother's making it up.
All right. So how did all of you actually end up towards the fence that is shown in this map?
After I punched him, and he got a tiny bit insignificant cut under his eye, which is bleeding a little bit, but it wasn't a big wound or anything. He grabbed hold of me, rugby tackled me, and sort of pushed me back a little bit, and I couldn't get him to get off me, and we were scuffling and struggling, and he was hitting me, and I got bruises and marks on my arms. I was trying to get him off me, and he wouldn't get off me, and I was calling for help, and I was sort of backed up against this fence here, and during that struggle he managed to rip my tracksuit bottoms. They got ripped and got blood on them, which I was really annoyed about because they were new and they were really expensive.
I'll just stop you there, Mr. Anderson. It's also important to know that when this was going on around the fence, except for you and Mr. Banks, was there anyone else involved in that fight?
The mother got involved as well.
What about your friend? Where was he at that moment?
He stood by the car as far as I know.
All right. So the mother at one point says that there was another man with a glass on at that around the fence. Did anything? Yeah. Did anything like that happen, Mr. Anderson?
What do you mean the glass on?
With sunglass or something like that?
Oh, glasses. No, he wasn't involved in it at all. He kept out of it.
All right. And during this time, is the kid still inside the car?
I don't know. I didn't see the kid. I didn't know the kid was there.
Can I just confirm that you had no idea that there was a kid present during this incident? Right. And when did you start to go back to your car?
After we crashed through the fence and landed on the floor, I got up and went back to my car.
All right. And did you immediately start your engine?
No.
When did you start your engine?
When he was pulling on my wing mirror.
When was he pulling your own wind mirror? Just after this happened?
No, after he'd kicked and dented the rear passenger side wheel arch, and then he pulled on my windscreen wipers, and then he was pulling on the wing mirror, and I beat the horn to warn him.
Mr. Anderson, can we just rewind back a little bit? When you say kicked the rear arch of your wheel, which side of the car was it? The passenger side. And so the rear view mirror that got broke, that was also from the passenger side?
No, it was on my side.
That was on your side. So did he, from the passenger side rear wheel, did he turn to your rear view mirror?
No,
did he go?
To pull the windscreen
All right.
wipers.
So you pulled the windscreen wipers first and then the rear view mirror?
Yeah.
All right. And when he was doing this, was your car stationary or it was moving?
Yeah, stationary.
All right. And when did you then start to move?
When he was pulling on the mirror, I thought, well, I'm not waiting for my car to be damaged anymore. It's a really expensive car, and I paid a lot of money for it, and I, looked after it, and I drive really carefully. So I thought, okay, I'm going to drive away, and I drove off, and he was pulling on the wing mirror, and then he sort of let go and did some dramatic fall and fell on the floor.
So when you started the car, he was still grabbing your wing mirror, right? So did you not worry about it that a man is hanging on your car and something might happen?
It is responsibility. If he's going to be damaging my car and he's going to be hanging onto it when I want to move away, then that's his stupid fault, isn't it?
Mr. Anderson, he went on to say, Mr. Banks went on to say in his witness statement that it was he who actually was trying to go towards this house, but...
Why did he come around here then? If he wanted to go there, why didn't he go there? There's no need for him to come here, here, and here, which is what he did.
Mr. Anderson, I just need to confirm against his version. So he says that he was walking and you started the car and tried to hit him. Did you try to do that, Mr.
No,
Anderson?
that's not true.
All right. And during this time, your friend was in the passenger seat?
Yes.
And do you have any idea where the mother of the complainant was? All right. And after he fell down on the floor, what did you do after that?
I was driving away then.
All right. So thank you for answering all these questions, Mr. Anderson.
Do I have to give evidence?
Yes, it will be beneficial for you to give evidence in the court, because if you do not give evidence, the tribunal might draw adverse inferences from that. So if you give evidence and tell your version of the truth, that will be helpful for you in this case. Mr. Anderson, I understood, as I have read the papers of this case, I understood that this is a Section 47 offence. This is an offence of assault occasioning bodily harm. This is basically when someone causes harms to another person intentionally or recklessly. That is what you are charged with. And I also appreciate the defense you have raised. You have raised that you only reciprocated as self-defense. And as you have just told me that Mr. Banks punched you first. So you felt under attack, and that's why in self-defense you punched back. And also regarding the car, it was the defendant, it was you who tried to get away with the car, and the the complainant jumped in. You did not try to hit the complainant.
No.
Yeah.
Can I say something else about this Tom Banks?
What do you want to say, Mr.?
Well, last weekend I was out shopping at the Langdale Retail Park, and I saw Tom Banks there, and he swore at me, and he said, "Who's laughing now?" I ignored him. I didn't pay any attention to him, and I carried on doing what I was doing. But what can I do about this?
Can I just confirm it was last week from today's date?
Yes, last weekend.
All right. So it was around 4 or 5 days ago?
Yeah.
And Mr. Banks shouted at you, and how did you react to that?
I ignored him.
You ignored him. Mr. Anderson, I think right now you are in an unconditional bail, so there is no condition for you to not communicate with Mr. Banks. And additionally, you did not actually do anything wrong. You did not react badly to it. So I think it would be fine for you. That won't matter in this incident.
What can I do about it? You know, he said, "Who's laughing now?" to me.
Mr. Anderson, it's important for you at this moment to establish your case. And when we eventually go into trial, we would try to challenge the credibility of Mr. Banks as a witness. So if later on it comes up, his later behavior comes up to be relevant to the case right now, then it may be useful to bring that up. But for now, at this moment, I do not think that would affect your case. All right. Mr. Anderson, I will also analyze the evidences that are stacked up against you so far.
Can you guarantee that I won't go to prison?
Mr. Anderson, I will try my best as your barrister to represent you in court. There is no guarantee that you won't go to prison. When I later on tell you about what the possible likely sentence would be, I can give you the options about what other options there might be possible. But you need to understand the real scenario here, that it is very likely that if you are convicted, you would go to prison. But so that doesn't happen, I will try my best to represent you, but that's a possibility that you need to understand. Mr. Anderson, I would say based on the evidences of this case that it's a moderately strong case against you. And I say that because we have 2 corroborating witness statements against you. And even though it is the complainant's mother who gave the witness statement, so the mother is not an independent witness. So it is possible that she exaggerated stuff, as you said. But still, as there are a lot of similarities between these 2 statements, it is likely that the tribunal will follow their version of the truth. However, I think for the car, as the police found damage on the rear side wheel arch of your car, which actually matches with how you said things happened that day about the car. So I think for that regard, the tribunal is likely to believe that you actually tried to get away and it's the complainant who jumped in front of your car. But this case will largely depend on witness credibility. It's what you are saying against what Mr. Banks is saying. And since there was a child present, that might be an aggravating factor for you. However, I think as you are a man of a good character, you do not have any previous convictions, that may also help you during this case. So based on the evidences, I would say this is a moderately strong case against you. So far you have said that you did whatever you did in self-defense. So my advice would be for you to plead not guilty on the basis of self-defense. However, it is also my responsibility to tell you the benefits of pleading guilty. If you plead guilty on today's hearing, your likely sentence can be reduced up to 1/3. And if you plead guilty in the next hearing, which is a pre-trial preparation hearing, your sentence may reduce down up to 1/4. And it continues to get reduced if you plead guilty. Say if you plead guilty on the day of trial, you can get a 10% discount on the likely possible sentence. The judges do look more favorably on those who plead guilty. However, it's completely a matter for you. My role here is only to advise you. So my initial advice for you to plead not guilty. I will soon take your instruction on how you want to plead. But before I do that, I would like to give you an idea about what a possible sentence may look like.
Is there any chance that my case could be tried in the magistrate's court?
This is an either way offence. So this is a type of case which can be tried in either magistrate court or Crown Court. But how I will explain the sentencing part to you will then make sense that it is highly likely that the prosecution will try to take it to the Crown Court. So it is likely that you will not get to choose which court it is tried at. But still, on the off chances that this is in the magistrate court, I will ask you which court would you want to take it to. But let's move back to the sentencing part. The prosecution will likely try to argue that the car that was being used here is a highly dangerous weapon. So they will try to put it as a very highly culpable incident. However, in my opinion, since the main injury happened before the car was involved, the injury happened due to the punch and not for the car. So the court, we may be able to convince the court to not put it as a high culpability. So it will go down to medium. And since it is a serious physical injury, even though we do not have any medical evidence yet, the prosecution will try to put it as a higher category injury. So that does the usual range for that type of situation is 36 weeks to 2 years and 6 months of custody. And the starting point is 1 year or 6 months of custody. And since a child was present there, that can be used as an aggravating factor. So that can level up the sentence from 1 year and 6 months. However, since you are of a good character and you cooperated with the prosecution so far, so that can be a mitigating factor. So in my opinion, you will likely face 1 year and 6 months of custody for this offense if you get convicted. However, as this is a less than 2 year sentence, the court may provide a suspended sentence order, which is basically they will suspend the sentence for a certain period of time. And if you do not commit any other offense during that time, you may not have to face any jail time for that. That's something we will try to establish in court. However, you should understand it's very much possible that you will face 18 months of custody for this offense. So since now I have given you an idea about what an actual sentence would look like, how do you want to plea, Mr. Anderson? Keep in mind that my advice is to plea not guilty because it's self-defense. However, it's your choice how you want to plea.
Not guilty. Well, I'm not guilty, so I'm not going to plead guilty if I'm not guilty. Anyway.
All right. So thank you, Mr. Anderson. And as I have said before, since this is an 18-month sentence, possibly, so this will go to the Crown Court where the jury will hear the case. Right. And that is because the magistrate court only for a single offense have power to sentence up to 6 months. And that is why I believe it is going to be Crown Court. However, in the off chance that the prosecution decides to continue this in the magistrate court, what's your instruction? Do you want to stay at magistrate court if that happens, or you want to go and face a jury trial?
Well, what would you advise?
Well, the benefits of a jury trial is that the conviction rates are low in a Crown Court, and it's easier to convince a jury about your case. So my advice would be to stay with Crown Court, and it is highly likely that this case will go to Crown Court. However, what's your instruction on that?
Crown Court then, yes.
All right. Mr. Anderson, today after this conference, you will be taken to the court and you will be identified in the dock by name and address. You will be asked to indicate plea, and where, as you have said, you will say not guilty. And for not guilty plea, the court will then allocate the case to the appropriate court,
Rifat,
and a trial date will be decided,
Rifat?
and bail will be determined for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rifat. That's your 20 minutes.